My name's Michael Hayes. I live in Clearwater, Florida, quiet, sunny, peaceful, or at least it used to be. I bought my home back in 2009, a corner property with a big backyard that backed into a strip of trees. 3 acres total, a little pond, and enough space to feel like I wasn't living on top of someone else. For years, I barely thought about the HOA. They sent out newsletters and collected their little monthly fees. That was it. Until one Monday morning, I woke up to the sound of engines. When I stepped outside, I saw bulldozers, 3 of them, chewing up the land behind my fence. I shouted over the noise, "Hey, what are you doing? That's private property." One of the workers yelled back, "Talk to the HOA, sir." I thought, talk to the HOA? They're supposed to manage the pool and the sign at the entrance, not my backyard. I drove straight to the HOA office, a small rented room inside the clubhouse. Sandra, the new HOA president, was sitting there with 2 board members. "They're building a park behind my house," I said. "On my land." She didn't even look up from her laptop. "It's community easement, Michael. You should have received a notice." Notice? I didn't get anything. She turned the screen around to show me a map, one that looked like it had been drawn by a kid. "See? The new boundary line includes that green strip. It's part of the Maple Creek shared zone now." I pointed. "That's not your land. That's parcel 17C mine." She sighed. "Then you should have kept up with your HOA paperwork." That was the moment I realized she wasn't mistaken. She was confident, arrogant. They were taking my land. I drove to the county office downtown. I waited 2 hours to speak with the clerk. I gave her my address, and she pulled up the digital parcel map. "You own parcel 17C, she said. "No HOA easements filed, no transfers, no permits for any public use. So they're building illegally?" She nodded. "Pretty much." I asked her to print the documents, sign and stamp everything. That piece of paper became my first piece of ammunition. I called Sandra that evening and told her to stop construction immediately. She laughed on the phone. "Michael, I don't think you understand how communities work. You can't just hoard land." Hoard land? That's when I knew. This was about power, not community. I needed someone who understood property law and HOAs. After a few calls, I found Jenna Porter, a sharp attorney who'd handled HOA disputes for years. She came over the next day, and we walked the fence line. She held up her iPad with the map overlay. "They've encroached about 60 feet past your boundary," she said. "That's not a mistake." Then she smiled. "If they're using your land without permission, you could end up owning everything they build." That got my attention. "Let them finish," she said. "Let them dig their own hole. Document everything." Over the next few weeks, I became my own private investigator. I bought a drone and recorded aerial footage of the bulldozers, the workers, and the expansion of the so-called community park. I took photos of every boundary marker, every mailbox, and every line of construction. Jenna told me to gather HOA newsletters too. They bragged about the new family recreation area funded by HOA dues. They had no idea those very newsletters would be used against them in court. After a week of silence, the HOA decided to play hardball. They started sending me violation letters. The first one said my grass was too tall. The second said my mailbox paint color didn't match community standards. Then came the fines, $1.50 here, $75 there, piling up like clockwork. I knew exactly what they were doing. Sandra even left me a voicemail. "Michael, if you just cooperate, we can clear these violations quickly." Cooperate. That was her word for surrender. I didn't respond. I just kept collecting everything. Every email, letter, and voicemail. Jenna called it ammo. By summer, the park was nearly complete. Families came by to watch the new playground go up. Kids were excited. I couldn't even get mad at them. They didn't know the truth. But then the HOA workers started cutting trees, my trees, to install a walking path that curved right behind my porch. One of the workers even parked a skid loader in my driveway like it was community property. I asked him to move it, and he said, "Sandra said it's fine. We're almost done anyway." That night, I looked out my window and saw the new Maple Grove Community Park sign go up, with bright spotlights. My land had a name now. And it wasn't mine. I started sharing updates on a local neighborhood Facebook group. I didn't accuse anyone, I just posted the truth, aerial photos, county maps, and stamped documents. Within hours, comments flooded in. Wait, they built the park on your land. I paid dues for that park. Sandra tried to comment, saying I was misinforming the community, but people weren't buying it. 2 days later, an anonymous flyer showed up in everyone's mailbox. Stop the HOA tyranny. They build a park on private property. That's when the board started to panic. Just when I thought they'd back off, they doubled down. The HOA started paving a small asphalt road from the main street straight into the park, right through my southern boundary. Jenna couldn't believe it. They're committing property trespass and county code violations at the same time. Let them finish, I said. Every dollar they spend now becomes mine later. So I watched, quietly, as they installed curbs, lights, and even parking spaces. My neighbors cheered. The board posted selfies. They were proud. I was patient. When the road was complete, Jenna filed the lawsuit. Private property encroachment, unauthorized construction, damages and restitution. We attached 120 photos, drone videos, signed county records, and copies of every HOA newsletter. The HOA called an emergency board meeting. Sandra said, he's bluffing. We'll fight it. But one board member, Tom, quietly slipped me a message. They never got county permits. Everything's illegal. I'm resigning. That was the moment I knew I'd already won. They just didn't know it yet. The first court hearing was chaos. The HOA's lawyer claimed I'd abandoned the land, that it was community managed by necessity. The judge leaned back and asked, "Did you have permission to build?" Silence. Jenna played a video clip of the HOA's own Facebook post showing Sandra cutting a ribbon under the park sign. The judge raised his brow. Interesting evidence, counselor. I could see Sandra's face drain of color. The judge didn't rule that day, but he issued a temporary injunction, meaning they had to stop using the park until further notice. A week later, a local news outlet picked up the story. Headline: HOA builds park on private property, faces lawsuit. Reporters came to my driveway for interviews. I stayed calm, stuck to facts, and showed documents. The HOA office was flooded with angry emails. 2 board members resigned. Sandra called me, voice trembling. You didn't have to go to the media. I didn't, I said. Truth travels fast. 2 months later, the HOA's lawyer called Jenna. We'd like to settle, he said. They offered me $90,000 for the land and park equipment. Jenna smiled. We're thinking 6 times that. Negotiations dragged for weeks. The HOA's insurance refused to pay because it was an unauthorized project. Sandra begged me, Michael, please. We'll lose everything. I said, you should have thought about that before you built on my property. Then I hung up. On the day of the final hearing, the courtroom was packed. The judge read the ruling slowly, word by word. The court finds that the HOA constructed facilities without consent or permit on privately owned land belonging to the plaintiff, Michael Hayes. All structures and improvements are hereby awarded to the property owner. Sandra's jaw dropped. The judge continued. The HOA shall compensate the plaintiff for 6 months of land usage at market value, $612,000. I sat still, letting it sink in. They had built a park, a road, and a playground, and handed it all to me. The HOA was broke. They had to liquidate their maintenance fund just to pay part of the judgment. Sandra resigned and moved away within 3 months. The new board reached out respectfully this time and asked if I'd lease the land back for park use. I agreed. We signed a 10-year lease, properly notarized, properly paid. Now every year, the HOA cuts me a check. The kids still play in that park, only this time it's on my terms. Sometimes when I walk past the oak trees, I smile. Because justice doesn't always come fast, but it comes. And in my case, it came with a playground. If you think homeowners should stand up for what's right, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories that prove justice still wins.